Hello everyone. Welcome back to another Commander review for Magic the Gathering. We are talking about, I'm going to say its name is Irini Sengir. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. But for this video, I'm going to call this card Irini Sengir. Irini Sengir is a vampire dwarf. So there we go. The Sengir family has got more vampires in it. It costs 2 generic mana and 2 black mana, and it is a 2/2. But it's not wearing a 2/2, it's wearing this fancy gown from Baron Sengir's castle. Irini Sengir has an ability, and it's a hate bear ability, but it's about hating against certain colors, which was very popular back in the day. Black was very strong against hating against white and green cards. Blue and red, for example, like oh my goodness, the card names are leaving me, but there's iconic duo of like blue elemental blast and red elemental blast. Red and blue are very good about hating each other as far as color pie is concerned. So there's like destroy blue creature or counter red spell, and black was very good at stopping white and green cards, which will be one of the deck ideas we talk about. It's a weird strategy, but you could build around it. We'll talk more about it. Anyway, as far as this hate bear ability is concerned, white enchantments and green enchantments that your opponents cast, or that anyone casts, cost 2 more to cast. 2 more colorless to cast. So, very limited because it has to be white or green, and it has to be an enchantment spell. So it's going to be a little weird because obviously it's dependent on your play group. If your play group has a lot of white and green decks, there's a lot of enchantment strategies at the table, this will be a good card for you. If not, you know, we'll play around with it and see what we can do. Just that hate bear ability, nothing any specifications are needed for that ability. To go on with the hate bear strategy, a card that I actually have used, surprisingly enough, green is kind of popular in my play group, or at least it was back when I did play with this card, was called Death Grip, and it's a black counter ability against green spells. And so I have used this card in multiple games because, like I said earlier, green is and was popular in my play group. So I actually have used this to my advantage, and I have drawn a lot of hate for it. So fun card, but be careful. The deck that I'm going to be putting Irini in is a Super Friends deck, mostly just because I didn't really know what to do with Irini as far as like my personal collection is concerned. I'm building decks for all of these commanders, but I'm trying not to like overwhelm myself. So I'm putting multiple commanders in singular strategies of decks. And so I'm going to have a lot of Super Friend commanders in this deck, of course, that we'll talk about in later videos. But for Irini, I kind of just put this in there because sometimes I will go up against white and green decks. There will be enchantments. So it's a fun little hate card against those decks, but mostly it's a creature that I can use to protect my Super Friends. So there are 2 ways that you can go about this deck. For me, I am doing a lot of Super Friends, a variety of them, but you could do a Liliana themed deck. There's a lot of cards for her and all relating to Liliana Planeswalkers and her story. So you could do it one of 2 ways, generic Planeswalkers or themed around a singular character, which would be fun. Secondly, there is this Hate Bear Tribal. There's a lot of Hate Bear synergies in other colors. Black is not too strong about it, and so it's going to be a lot of artifact heavy cards. But, like I said earlier, black is good against hating white decks, against green decks. If that's really prevalent in your meta, then you can easily build around that and take advantage of it. One other strategy that you can look at is anything that's not black. I talked about this in an earlier video, but there's a black creature that gives -1/-1 counters to anything that's not black. Soot Imp will bleed your opponent slowly over the game as they cast non-black spells, so it's this kind of weird color pie deck, but there's not a lot of love or support for that strategy. Lastly, and I do make an apology for this. I'm not the best at keep track of all this information, but I do try and consider like cheaper cards when I make these videos. Obviously, sometimes I just throw a card on the video because it's just that good. This entire deck strategy is part of that example. But I do try and sometimes look at like cheaper versions of effects because I personally play on a budget with my decks. Like I've said earlier, I'm making a lot of decks, so I play on a budget, which to me I enjoy because it adds a fun challenge to build around, as well as I don't exactly know how everything's going to play out every time I play. If I played with the best cards every single time, to me that would kind of get stale because I always know what's coming. I always know how to handle a situation because I have the best cards for that situation. So for me, building budget adds flavor, it adds challenge for me to think through things. This deck, however, disregards any of my personal beliefs. So this is mono black control. Now, in order to build mono black control, it's very pricey. I remember, for example, Curse Totem, Orcish Bowmasters, great cards, very pricey. And Imp's Mischief even, I remember I went to one of my LGSs here in town, and I found 4 copies of Imp's Mischief for like 75 cents. It was in like a used card box. They're a little bent, you know, they had a little bit of wear on them, and so that's why they were selling them for 75 cents. And so I bought 4 of them because I was building a 60 card deck back then. And I thought, oh, it'd be nice to have some protection for this deck. And so, like, having ways to redirect spells, even at the cost of my own life, is a really cool ability. Well, the problem is that is a really cool ability. And so Imp's Mischief has jumped in price over the years, and it is now an expensive card. For me, at least, it's an expensive card. So, mono black control you can do, but to get the best cards for that deck, to have a reliable strategy for that deck, does cost money. So bear that in mind if you wanted to build mono black control. But overall, very powerful. And that is going to do it for Irini Sengir. Interesting builds. Obviously, the Hate Bear is a weird strategy. Black is really only good against white and green decks, and so your meta really depends on if you're going to build this deck with those Hate Bears in mind. It will make for some interesting games when you do come across them. However, when you don't come across them, it's going to make for some really weird and awkward games on your part because you're not really doing much, and that's never good. So bear that in mind when you build or play with this commander. I'm going to look forward to playing with it, mostly because most of the time I won't run into the issue of needing Hate Bears against green and white enchantments. But in my Super Friends deck, these players that I'm going to be playing against may be playing against me with those enchantments, and so having that in there will just be a fun little gotcha card. And so I'm all about having fun experiences in the game of Magic, and I think this will have some fun. I'm not sure. Let me know if there's anything I missed in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think of this commander in the comments below, and I will read through them and we'll talk about this commander, because it is a weird one, but I'm excited to hear what you guys think. So thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!